Okay, it says I'm live, and I just gotta make sure that my laptop is plugged in properly because it is not. Because if you do it one way, it doesn't work, it doesn't charge, and then if you flip it around, there's one side that works. Anyways, hello everyone. It is Tuesday, the 12th of September, 2023, and it has yet again been a little bit since I have posted. Yesterday was September 11th, obviously, 22 years since the attacks and other things that happened on this day in New York. And I did an exchange at West Point Military Academy when I was at RMC, one of two cadets selected. And when I was there, I did go to Ground Zero. I did visit the area, and I had just I guess I was just sworn in literally like the month before that happened. So I had just so in 2000, so August 3rd, 2001 is when I was officially sworn in to serve, and then that happened. And then since then, I have deployed, and I know many people that have deployed because I was a Patricia officer, the first female in the history of the regiment. I've said this before, and I served for 15 years, and then since have incorporated. And hello, Joshua S. John. I'm gonna share some of your stuff. So like I'm actually I'm happy that you're here because I love your videos on 9/11, and of course like one of your videos within 30 minutes of posting it, it got deleted, but it was such a good one too. And yeah, I'm just glad that more people are getting this information out there. I'm not happy and celebrating what I'm like being right or anything like that. I guess I'm just I'm appreciative and hopeful for the future if more and more people speak out on this and shed light. Because even yesterday I posted some videos that I had made like even last year, and I had people on Twitter that were literally attacking me and blocked me and stuff like that. Which again, it is what it is. And instead of looking at the proof that I was showing, I shared some of Joshua's stuff. Redacted had really good videos out, and I'll get into them. And so these are events that are like explicitly created in order to elicit emotional responses in people, and so they allow that emotional bias, reinforced bias, to get in the way of actually looking at the facts. And people are coming at me saying, well, I've lost people, at the at Ground Zero, at the World Trade Centers. How dare you say that this is something that is a hoax? And I'm saying that I'm not saying that this event didn't happen. I've never said that. This is why this is important, right? Because lives were lost, and this was something that was staged and planned. And there were, like, even with Building 7, this was a controlled demolition, and even with the towers, there were CGI manipulations being utilized, and there were also explosions as well. And there are so many accounts of people on the ground, first responder types, and journalists and others that were not crisis actors, but they're actually responding to actual chaos and death. And they were saying that there were multiple explosions and things like that. And I'll share this stuff. But so this stuff needs to be shared. And I have deployed overseas because of lies, and I've lost people overseas because of lies. And there's people in other countries that have lost a lot of people because of lies. Like I'm talking about like Afghanistan and Iraq and so many other areas too, right? And this is something that we need to address and speak about and get the truth out. And not just us, because there's people that are saying like, what's the point in keeping on with like pushing the data when it's not going anywhere, it's not resolving anything, and there's more pushback from like whoever, like these groups, etc. And until our leadership actually acknowledges the fact that that we were being lied to, because even Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau and Biden and these people are still not saying what it is, right, and what it was. And so there's still like this censorship that's happening. So I don't know if they're just not actually aware of this. And if they're not, then again, they're not suitable to be our leaders moving forward, because there's a lot more stuff that's possibly gonna gonna happen. Oh, I just want to show this point. I think there's a way that I can actually show messages. I'm learning, and so I just want people to see this and read it because it's true. And then this is a good shout out for you as well. Because I'm learning that on YouTube and on Rumble, you don't, like, people don't see the comments. But anyway, so yes, there's absolutely a cognitive dissonance associated with this. And I'll actually just share screen see here, because I'm going to go all over the place. Joshua, this is your work.
Terrorists were determined to destroy Western civilization? Is this story true? What on earth happened? The phenomena that we see on 9/11 are so powerful and so strange, it defies explanation. It will boggle your mind. I want to take you on my journey of discovery. I think you'll find it very interesting, but I warn you now. What you will see and learn may be disturbing and may upset and challenge your view of your government.
So this is a documentary made by Ace Baker in 2012. And they're probably going to get into this, but there's a lot of information that I've shared from structural engineers and actual experts in their field, and they had proven as well that there were explosions and that there were controlled demolitions, and for so many different reasons. But I think they're going to get into this in this video as well.
Your news media and your world. But I ask you to watch because I believe that getting to the truth of what happened on 9/11 is the most important issue of our time. Let's begin by revisiting 9/11 the way most of us experienced it in the first place, through the lens of television news. That's the story we were told. 19 kamikaze Muslim hijackers hated our freedom so much that they took over 4 commercial airliners. They flew them around the northeastern United States. They crashed one into each twin tower. And one into the Pentagon.
Smoke rising up out of the smoke.
One went down in a Pennsylvania field after a struggle with heroic passengers. Super hot fires raged inside the towers, melting the steel supports, eventually causing them to collapse under their own weight. And all of it was masterminded by a guy hiding in a cave in Afghanistan. The events of 9/11 were bizarre and unprecedented. Yet the government wasted no time telling us what happened.
The heat was so intense that the steel melted.
Who did it?
Reputed Arab terrorist Osama bin Laden.
And what our response was going to be.
They were acts of war.
Before and since 9/11, no steel-framed skyscrapers have ever completely collapsed from fire. On September 13th, just 48 hours after the event, Northwestern University structural engineer Zdeněk Bezant published his simple analysis.
Cross-reference, check this stuff out. I can't see if there's anyone commenting now, but even the day or days leading up to this event, Donald Rumsfeld announced that they had lost trillions of dollars, and so even with the Pentagon, it was not a plane, missile.
Simple. Bezant imagined the upper block of the tower powering down through the entire undamaged lower part of the tower in what became nicknamed the pile driver theory. That same day, September 13th, 2001, structural engineer Chris Wise also made it simple. He informed us that the fire reached 800 degrees Celsius, which melted the steel supports. The Twin Towers were among the largest and strongest structures ever built. They were a tube within a tube, 240 steel box columns around the perimeter, and a central core structure of 47 massive and cross-braced steel columns. Could plane crashes and fires really cause what we saw?
It was the heat, the flames there burned too long and too hot, rising above 1,500 degrees. It began to melt the steel.
The American people were in shock. Most accepted the simple explanations unquestioningly, but not everyone. On September 11th, explosives expert Van Romero said he thought explosives were planted in the towers. Curiously, a week later, Romero flip-flopped and said that fire did it. But could fire really do this?
It's hard to put it into words.
To some people, it looked an awful lot like a mushroom cloud. On October 21st, 2001, Jay McMichael posted, "Muslims suspend the laws of physics." I tried to be patriotic. I tried to believe, he says. McMichael points out that a jet fuel fire cannot possibly melt steel. A few weeks later, speaking at the UN, President Bush called for intolerance.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to...
And just for anyone that doesn't know, November 11th in Canada is our Remembrance Day.
shift the blame away from the terrorists
Yeah,
themselves,
numerology.
away from the guilty.
Nevertheless, videos and websites claiming a 9/11 government conspiracy began to flourish. There were questions, painful questions, about the missing air defenses, demolitions, Building 7, multiple war games, and the airplane passenger lists. A few days after 9/11, CNN published the passenger lists from all 4 of the hijacked flights. No names of any of the 19 hijackers were on there. Larry Silverstein took out a 99-year lease on the Twin Towers just 6 weeks before 9/11, after it had been owned by the Port Authority for over 30 years. Speaking about Building 7 in a PBS documentary, Silverstein said,
I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
A put option is a financial instrument that goes up in value when the stock value goes down. Just a few days before 9/11, the volume of put options placed on United and American Airlines spiked to more than 30 times normal. And where was America's mighty air defense? When any commercial aircraft is off course or does not respond to air traffic control, it is standard procedure to intercept with scrambled Air Force fighter jets. F-16s can be airborne in 2 minutes. The 9/11 planes were flying all over the Northeast for an hour and a half. Was it just a coincidence that a number of military war games were taking place on 9/11, including simulated hijackings, planes crashing into buildings, and fake blips injected into radar screens? NORAD and the FAA were confused. Was it just a coincidence that a bioterror exercise called Tripod 2 was
Check out Tripod 2.
scheduled for the day after 9/11 on the pier right next to the World Trade Center, and that FEMA agents had already arrived the night before 9/11?
To be honest with you, we arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning.
Was it just a coincidence that on the day before 9/11, the Pentagon announced that it had misplaced
$2.3 trillion.
Was it just a
So I haven't watched this specific one from Joshua. I've watched a couple of his other 9/11 ones. So we're watching this together. So some of the things that are being shared here, like that was Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know if you know who that is. Like this is the budget stuff I was just talking about. So this is a good movie already. For that, I have not verified if FEMA did get in there the night before. That's one thing that I'm gonna have to clarify, because even with FEMA, like in their response in Maui, there were
coincidence
concerns.
that Flight 77 struck the Pentagon in an area that had recently had the outer walls renovated and that contained financial records, and not in the area where the top brass had their offices? Flight 77 allegedly made a death-defying spiral dive maneuver, then flew in at ground level, knocking over multiple light poles, yet somehow pilot Hani Hanjour maintained control despite the fact that he couldn't even fly a Cessna, and managed to destroy the aircraft so completely that not a single serial number part was ever recovered?
No debris.
Where are the engines? Where are the seats? Where's the luggage? Where are the passengers? Popular Mechanics magazine published an article and later a book promoting the official story.
Conspiracy theorists want to know why it wasn't the width of the full wingspan of the plane, and actually just the simple reason was that the wings came off.
I think what they expect is that if an airplane hits a building, it kind of punches a cartoon-like hole in the building in the exact shape of the wings. The wings did not fully penetrate the facade. In fact, the wings had already been partially sheared off by the time the plane even hit the building.
It cannot be true.
In June 2005, Dr. Reynolds published an article presenting strong evidence for explosive demolitions at the World Trade Center. Along with dozens of up, some yellow-hot molten metal began pouring out of a window at the 80th floor. Could the steel floor trusses be melting for some reason? Could it be melting aluminum from the airplane? Reportedly, the 81st floor was full of lead batteries for computer backup. Could it be melting lead? Whatever substance this is, it's at least 2,500 degrees.
The impression that it had impacted the hidden face of the building.
Jim Hoffman drew a hard line, specifically disclaiming no plane theory. I trusted Jim Hoffman and his scholarly footnoted website. No planes? Ridiculous. Curiously, each plane made a bright flash just as it impacted the tower. What could possibly have caused that? It can't be any sort of static electricity charge. The nose of the aircraft was plastic. What were those flashes all about? Meanwhile, Judy Wood was publishing articles bashing Stephen Jones, and with very good reason.
At that point in time, there was a falling out between Steve and me. I had invited Judy Wood onto the program. It was actually the last show I had with a radio broadcast on Republic. And we were talking about all the research she did in displaying the vast range of damage, not just to the Twin Towers, but to buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6. Where, of course, Building 7 didn't come down until 5:20 in the afternoon and requires a whole separate explanation.
And I mentioned this in my videos from a while ago, but it was towers 1, 2, and 7 that had went down, and then it was called Ground Zero. And I've made the connection with sacred gematria and like even with the correlation with Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio, and 73 and 37 being near numbers and triangular numbers and hexagonal numbers and all this stuff, and times together is 2701. And I could share that as well, but I show the like certain people that find that those numbers are very significant, including
the toasted cars, the massive degree of pulverization, photographs of this dust cloud enveloping New York City that involved billions of cubic yards of very fine dust. It became apparent to me at that point in time that there was no possible way that an hypothesis rooted in conventional explosives, even supplemented by cutter charge like thermate and thermate, could possibly be adequate to explain all of the data. Now, Steve and I had a divergence here because I wanted to broaden the range of hypotheses for consideration, but Steve and some of his allies really basically wanted to restrict the focus to their preferred hypothesis.
Jones was ignoring the totality of the devastation, facts that didn't fit his thermite theory. In the fall of 2006, the conflict reached a breaking point. Jones resigned Scholars to start a new group, taking a number of his supporters with him. Meanwhile, Judy Wood was offering a brand new theory of her own. To help us get our mind around the phenomenon at the World Trade Center, Dr. Judy Wood begins by reminding us how much structure was there.
We have two towers, huge towers, very large objects once upon a time. Let's look at how they're built. The core columns, huge beefy beams. And then we have the outer columns and floors bolted between the two.
I'm going to link this, and then I'll see if I can get another one from Joshua first for 9/11 to see which ones are. Because I want to go into the CGI stuff as well, because I've already proven that there were crisis actors and that there were training exercises going on at the same friggin' time in and around those areas, and things were getting mixed up because there was actually explosions and stuff like that as well. But there's possibly, again, like another layer to this. just like the moon landings when they were leaving. Okay, so like everyone's like, oh, they just left a camera with a tripod. I'm like, whatever. No, they didn't. Okay, because like the person panned and like went in and out with the friggin' camera. It's only possible if a human did it, right? Okay, so I don't want to go on this too much because people are probably. Oh, did I not share it? I hope people saw this. Oh my goodness, no, you didn't see it. This whole time, oh my goodness. And I don't even know how long it was going on for. I'm just gonna keep on going anyways with this video. I will link it. I'm so embarrassed that I'm doing this even like you gotta like look at this stuff. And it didn't share. Yeah, I'm just thinking do I keep on with this? Maybe I will present it. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm gonna share it. I'm so sorry I stopped. Because this stuff is important. Oh my goodness, and I was like so much into it.
In this 3D model,
I'll get better.
two
I'm
white
so sorry.
spheres represent the location of the puffballs. With the mask in the correct location, the left wing appears to pass over the puffball. Changing
speed it up
only the
because we've already
mask,
heard it?
the left wing now appears to pass under the puffball. They didn't have time to do good special effects. They needed to create airplane composites from a number of different camera angles rather quickly. With a 3D model, the airplane flight can easily be rendered from any camera angle. Videos are video composites. We know this because of the cartoon physics and from a few mistakes that are found in them. More on the mistakes in a moment. Here are the basics of how compositing works. Compositing is done by arranging video elements in a stack of layers. Some part of the top layer is made transparent, revealing the next layer underneath. Beginning with a stock 3D model of a Boeing 767, the plane is rotated so that it banks left. It's color corrected, motion blurred, scaled down, and animated. The rest of the layer is transparent, so it appears to fly in front of the tower. To make it appear to fly behind the tower requires some masking. The key to this trick, and the key to solving 9/11, is something called a key. In video, a key is an effect that makes part of a video transparent based on some property, like color or brightness. The tower video is copied into 2 separate layers. The sky is made transparent on the top layer with luminance key. Anything brighter than the adjustable threshold disappears. Notice that when the 2 layers are back together, it looks identical to the original. Remember, it's actually 2 layers stacked up. To complete the illusion, the airplane layer is sandwiched in between the other 2. Presto! If the airplane goes too far, oops, it looks like it comes out the back side. To prevent this from happening, a mask can be drawn on the airplane layer. The south tower is in the center of the frame. The left half of the screen is masked off. The airplane goes in, and we never see it again. Under certain conditions, faking an airplane on live TV is pretty easy. Under other conditions, it's impossible. Only 3 9/11 airplane videos are confirmed to have been shown live: ABC Chopper 7, Fox Chopper 5, and WPIX. None of them actually shows an airplane hitting anything. Compositing would have been impossible. It just so happens that the live shots share a remarkable list of compositional characteristics that make live video compositing possible. Visible for over 5 seconds. That's 340 separate images, and there is no plane.
It's Kai Simonson.
The camera op on board Chopper 5 was WNYW reporter Kai Simonson.
Well, I knew that the plane was coming in because the pilot told me. The pilot said that the guy was flying really well and he was heading for the tower.
The obvious thing then would be to point the camera at the airplane and follow it. Instead, Simonson zooms, zooms, and zooms, framing a shot of the towers. The airplane image enters the picture within 1 video frame. That's 1/30th of a second. What are the odds of that? By the way, Kai Simonson is not just a reporter for Fox 5. He also specializes in video compositing. In 2001, he was advertising his services of green screen compositing.
So I just wanted to make sure that I shared this because I'm also going to link it, just because it was I think it's fairly important. I'm going to make sure that I close it down, and because there's other things that I wanted to talk about. And yesterday, again, people are probably like a little bit overwhelmed if they've looked at a lot of data and proof that came out yesterday regarding 9/11. I'm in Canada, so I definitely wanted to bring up Tamara Lich and the case that's going on, and it's being held in Ottawa. And again, this is a woman that was opposing the mandates and the therapeutics being forced on the entire country, and was completely character assassinated, vilified, life ruined, even jailed, and you name it, and couldn't even see her mother in the hospital when she was dying. And there's just so much more to this. But I even know someone personally, Helen Gruss, who Ottawa Police Services, someone who was also an advocate for friggin' freedom, and was also anyways, I've shared this before, but part of the open, I was in support of her during the open hearings for her, and like Ottawa police people clearly having it out for her and countless others, and such a negative opinion of like the Freedom Convoy and what it stood for and stuff like that, and again, just like a lot of exaggerations and misinformation that was being brought to us by people like Marco Menincino, who was lying about everything, and also utilizing crisis actors to try to make this bigger than what it was. And it just blows my mind that this is stuff that still people are not aware of even now. And so Rebel News has been good at getting information out there when no one in the mainstream media will. And so I just wanted to share another video from them before I get into other things. And I really hope that people start to look at the data and support people like Helen Gruss. There was like hardly anyone there when I was part of like these. It was like an open hearing. No one, like hardly anyone, came out in support of her, which was sad. And even now, with like with the cases going on in Ottawa, there's not a lot of people. It's because it's
Alan from the Democracy Fund. Alan and I have both been in the courtroom across the entirety of the proceedings of the past 4 days. And I really want to get your take. I want to share it with our Rebel News audience in terms of what you've observed, what the major takeaways are, and what's important to know. I'll share with you some of my takeaways. The primary theme that I've observed is that the evidence introduced by the prosecution and some of the evidence sought to be introduced by the prosecution is undermining one of its central arguments, as we heard in the opening statement on day one. So the prosecution said the Freedom Convoy was, quote, anything but peaceful. Yet video after video that was shared as evidence or introduced to become accepted as evidence. And today, for example, we saw this press conference from towards the end of the Freedom Convoy in which Tom Marazzo, who was, let's say, a volunteer of the Freedom Convoy, was speaking in anticipation of this police takedown of the protest. And he was repeatedly calling on supporters to come to Ottawa and be peaceful. He must have used that word 5 times. He regularly emphasized the need for peaceable assembly, and he also maintained that in the event of a police takedown on a physical basis, that the demonstrators would not be violent, they would not resist, and that they would comply with demands.
We're here to talk. Let's find a peaceful resolution to this. I want to go home. I want to go home, but I'm not. I'm not going until I'm no longer needed here. And based on all the support that we have from the people of Canada, I have an incredible amount of support and a lot of people that seem to want me here. And I'm not going home until the job is done. Okay. I am not calling for violence. I'm not expecting you to get into your vehicle, drive here and create problems, create crimes. Okay, that's not what we're saying. Strength in numbers. We got sent here to send a message. The message isn't getting through. He's not getting it. And I apologize if I'm bashing the guy, but honestly, from my assessment, he's got a 22 caliber mind in a 357 world. Okay, let's get at a table, for God's sakes. Enough hiding. I'm willing to sit at a table with the Conservatives and the NDP and the Bloc as a coalition. I'll sit with the Governor General. You put us at the table with somebody that actually cares about Canada.
So that, to me, again, undermined that central claim. And one last thing I'll share with you, and see if you caught this too, or if you shared my point of view, is that one of the police officers who was introduced as a witness, it was Russell Lucas. He was sort of this liaison officer dealing with the Ottawa Police Service's potential negotiations with the Freedom Convoy demonstrators. He said while he was testifying, when asked by the defense, that there were no instances of violence from demonstrators towards police, and that emergency lanes remained open on the roads upon which Freedom Convoy vehicles were parked, with the exception of a small segment of Wellington. And lastly, the intro video that we saw on day one, that 11.5-minute video montage, didn't capture anything regarding violence from demonstrators towards police officers. So with that long-winded question out of the way, what do you think are the major takeaways, and what do you think of my assessment that the prosecution continually undermines its own case?
Well, Robert, that's very interesting. And from what you said, I'd say, the big question for me is, why is the Crown doing that? That's the question I've been asking myself throughout this trial.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned their opening statement. Usually we get a bit of a roadmap with respect to where the Crown's going in their opening statement. I don't think we really got that from them. And then they started introducing evidence. And in some cases, as you've alluded to, it's not quite proper evidence yet because it's in a voir dire, and that's a trial within a trial, and the admissibility over that evidence will be determined later. But you look at it and you say, why this? Why is this part of their case? And we're not the only ones who are asking ourselves that question. Even the defense lawyers have these questions, right? There's, for example, there's a conspiracy which has been alleged between, we don't actually know. We don't know who was part of the conspiracy, but what the Crown is trying to do is to prove that a conspiracy exists and to prove that Leach and Barber were part of that conspiracy so they can use the evidence against each other. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and if anybody's wondering about it, they can read about it at our webpage, the Democracy Fund. We've explained it in our daily updates. But, the defense lawyers don't know what the conspiracy is about. There's disclosure that they haven't seen yet. There's disclosure that they have seen, and they've asked the Crown Attorney, how do you intend to rely upon this? And they've had an answer, and now that answer has been expanded. So I think there are a lot of unknowns so far.
Okay, I want to press on this because you reminded me of something from the trial. So you mentioned the conspiracy aspect. And the Crown said that Tamara Leach and Chris Barber were involved with the conspiracy. And the judge then said, and I quote, with others. So literally there are others in the conspiracy that are literally not specified. That's strange. And also, if I recall correctly, I don't even think the specific alleged crimes were listed in the opening statement, unless I might have missed that. I don't even think the prosecution specified mischief or obstruction or what's the term, incitement or inducement or counseling, I think is the word they use, counseling towards mischief or obstruction of police or intimidation. So I agree with you. There's not really, that's a great term you used. Roadmap was lacking. It's not even clear what they want to intend to do.
No, you're right. Now, to start off with the conspiracy, I think the judge doesn't know, right? That's something the Crown is going to have to advise about.
Okay, and I'm going to stop this here, but I really do hope that people start taking a look at this stuff. I'm going to stop sharing and remember to share this time. Another video by Dr. John Campbell, who is a literal expert in the field and is someone that people need to be taking seriously already. So this was 3 days ago. So I'm a little chilly. It's like 16 degrees in here because I've had the heat off and I had all the windows and stuff like that open overnight. And, anyway,
we want to look at excess deaths today that are just.
And also, like, if there's any children in the room, please have them leave because the stuff is just, again, it's unsettling.
Carrying on in a group of countries where they are remaining high. But there's another group of countries where excess deaths are well below the average. What is going on here? Now, let's look at this graphic here to begin with. And this is not related to the excess deaths, of course. This is related to vaccination status. And this is share of people who completed the initial COVID-19 vaccine protocol. So we see we've got countries that are fairly highly vaccinated up here. Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, Denmark, United Kingdom, United States, Netherlands, what we might call the more affluent countries up here. And then we've got poorer European countries beneath who vaccinated at much lower rates. So, for example, we see Moldova there vaccinated at around about the 30% rate, as opposed to Australia, where it was well over the 80% rate. So difference between 30 and 80%. So really quite significant difference in vaccination rates. And just let's look at that here. So we see countries that are highly vaccinated up here. And then we compare that to countries, this group of countries where there's low amounts of vaccination here. So that's interesting to note. Now, we're not saying that there's one simple cause of the excess mortality. It is going to be more than one factor. It's going to be multiple factors. But let's just remember those countries where the vaccination rates were higher or lower, because it seems a pity that countries that have spent a lot of money on vaccines aren't benefiting from lower rates of mortality overall. It just seems a real pity that the more sophisticated countries are having, the richer countries are having more excess mortality compared to the poorer European countries. Let me show you what I mean here. So that was the vaccination rates. Now, this is the United States. So we see that the excess deaths in the United States are currently running about the 8% mark. This is still high. And of course, this is at a time where we would expect it to be lower, because the more vulnerable people we would expect to have died already. Here we see the United Kingdom. And again, we do see that the excess deaths remain high in the United Kingdom, round about. This week's actually down to 4.5%, but this average here is looking at round about, this is from our World in Data, looking at round about the 10% mark for the excess deaths in the United Kingdom. This is Australia. Now, Australia, it's particularly high, I'm afraid. We see Australia's around about the 18% mark for excess deaths. And it stayed high really for quite a long time now, right from the beginning of 2021. So very high excess deaths in Australia. Canada also remaining high, unfortunately, over the 5% mark for excess deaths in Canada. Netherlands, not quite so bad in the Netherlands, but we can see it's been in positive territory. There's been some excess deaths, again, pretty well from, well, that's from about March 2022 there, all the way through to the present time. Not as bad as in some countries, but still there. Denmark, again, looking at this trend here, we've got this overall trend of excess mortality in Denmark. New Zealand, it has been high, but New Zealand does seem a little bit low at the moment, but it has been high for some time. And New Zealand can be a little bit slow with their data. So let's hope that's a genuine picture of New Zealand. Ireland, really quite high. That figure there is about 11% in Ireland. So we see that the excess deaths in Ireland have really been quite really quite high for quite some time. Very sad to see that in Ireland. And just reminding ourselves of the countries where the vaccination rates are higher. So all this money spent on vaccinations, and yet we still have the excess deaths in these countries. Now here we have countries where the vaccination rates are much lower, generally poorer Eastern European countries with lower vaccination rates. How is that how are they doing in terms of excess deaths? So let's look at these countries now in terms of excess deaths. And we see in Bulgaria, first of all, that deaths are about 20% less than we would expect based on the 5-year average at the moment. So pretty good news there in Bulgaria in terms of excess deaths. And it's been down, as we see, they've been down for quite some time, since March 2022, roughly. Romania, fairly similar position in Romania. Excess deaths, let me just show you the whole graphic. So we can see that we're well below the average here, and have been since March 2022. We've been well down, nicely below the excess deaths, exactly as we would expect after a pandemic where more vulnerable people have already left us, sadly. Hungary, again, well below the average line of the previous 5 years. So reduced excess deaths in Hungary, not quite as long as some other European countries, but they've been down for quite some time now, certainly since all of 2023. Good news in Hungary. Poland, again, we see fairly lowish. There has been the odd blip, but lower than average for most of 2023. I think that's fair to say. Some slight peaks above average, but certainly lower than the UK, constantly higher, or the United States, constantly higher. Azerbaijan, going around about the 0 mark. So that's the 0 mark there. So Azerbaijan, fairly low. Kosovo, also round about the 0 mark, nearer what we would expect. Slovakia, well, quite a bit lower than the 0 mark again for pretty well all of 2023. So what are we there? Something like minus 20% less deaths than would be expected for the 5-year average from Slovakia, a poorer Eastern, towards the East European country. Doing very well. Armenia. Well, Armenia, again, well below the average for, again, pretty well since that time period, since March 2022, and going above 1 month there, but lower for all of 2023. Very consistent trend that we're seeing here. Georgia, this is the Georgia in Europe, not the Georgia in the United States. Again, lower for, let's just show you the whole thing there, the 0 line, so below for, again, since pretty well March 2022, lower than average expected deaths, which is what we'd expect because of all the vulnerable people who died in the peaks associated with the pandemic. Moldova, again, the same pattern since March 2022. Deaths have been mostly below what we would expect. Again, just to look at the whole thing there. See, it's
and earlier I spoke to Dr.
I'm going to keep sharing.
Today's Talk Friday.
So Dr. John Campbell, I'm hoping that you can still see the screen. Let me just see if you can. I have to go back. Okay, yeah, you can. So this is his page that I have to go back on now. And so he talks about serious adverse events, even within, again, the last 15 hours, and bringing on other experts. Yeah, so he's getting a little bit more like, I mean, there has to be shock and awe in the titles, which is why my titles as well, like in my videos, are like, there's shocking and there's awe there, and there's bold claims being made, but there's also bold proof and evidence that's being, and yeah, so even talking about natural immunity, I have shared this with all levels of government now for the last few years, and I even show proof, and it just went semi-viral. So there was someone that liked a post from a couple of years ago on my Twitter, which is now X, and it was me sharing emails that I had sent to Chrystia Freeland, Omar Alghabra, Marco Mendicino, Jim Watson, the mayor of Ottawa, for example, and Justin Trudeau, and all of these people, public health experts, and media, and so many different people, and I was giving them like the actual data, scientific, medical, and government data as a friggin' analyst, as someone that has trained the highest levels of government, and even hired, by the way, like Helen Bruce. This is what I was saying, like she's been speaking out as someone that's part of law enforcement, and I know others too that I can't name, but they are on our side, right? So like even in Europe, you had you had people that were within government that committed crimes against humanity, and then there were ones that were within, that were internal, that were trying to speak out and stop this stuff from happening. But because of what we've shown regarding behavioral studies and stuff like that, with the Stanford prison experiments and Universe 25 and so many others, humans are very easily persuaded into doing evil things. There's like so many examples of that, and there are strong arguments that say that there's like 70 to 80% of the population do not think critically, and or will, again, do what others tell them to do if there's even like a little bit of pressure put on, and only about 20 to 30% that of people that would actually think critically. So even people like, and I've shared these videos before too, but like even with like electrocuting people, and just like not like that person being in another room and so being separated from the trauma, like the visual trauma and stuff like that you're committing, and just because someone tells you to do something that may or may not be lethal, because you don't know that the person on the other end is just so happened to not be hooked up to wiring that causes electrocution, but that person doesn't know that. So every time this person presses anyways, I should share a video of this stuff. It just goes to prove that humans are easily susceptible. Next video, I'll share that. But anyway, Dr. John Campbell, because I'm going on so many tangents already. And so I highly recommend looking at his stuff. Because I want to get into other things just regarding the COVID therapeutics. And there's so many connections. But again, you can see my face for a while. And I just want to show this. Yeah. So Rob Spica, if you don't know who this person is, Skiba, I don't know why I said Skiba. So it sounds like I don't know who he is. So Rob Skiba, Skiba, and I have taken a look at a lot of his content, so much of his content, and I highly encourage people to do it as well. And there's just some interesting correlations that can be made just by virtue of his work. And yes, we'll show you some things, because he talks about like whether you're a scientist or you're religious, or like part of occult groups that like have like different ideologies and stuff like that. There are certain groups that believe that there are like beings that were called the Nephilim, or the Nephilim that existed. These are beings that are even in ancient texts and stuff like that, allegedly. These ancient texts could also be newer than we're being led to believe, and that they were dinosaurs, and dinosaurs could possibly be reptiles that were genetically altered, and stuff like that. Just like they allude to in the Jurassic Parks and stuff like that too, especially with the T-Rexes, right, where these are genetically altered reptile beings that were given like genetic components, materials from other species that would give like the best of all these different worlds and things like that. But and then I talked about in my last video too, where there was a scientist that he was trying to come up with a way to regrow limbs. I don't know if I was talking about this on this video, and like it's even in comics and stuff like that. And like the guy that like injected himself to test on humans, like this therapeutic that could like regrow his limb. He turned out to also be someone that turned into like an evil reptile being. The further along in in these comic strips or in these movies, you go, like they get more evil. And so and then with chimeras and hybrid human beings as well, there are people throughout history that have talked about these beings being like not something that was in God's plan. And that when you start messing around with like the different species and do genetic altering and editing and stuff like that, and make different species like kind of like embedded into other beings, like there's no soul that is available or able to enter that, like this vessel, because it's a confused, possibly like a confused avatar or physical being or whatever you want to call it. And because there's different, like there's even a lot of passages in the Bible that discuss like God created like different friggin' things, right? And not to mix. So like humans don't mix with goats, right? Goats don't mix with cows. It's like and we all just we mix with each other, and as in the human race. So like and that applies to all friggin' skin colors, all eye colors, all like whatever friggin' hand you write with. Like, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, sorry. Like, where was I going with this? And so even with these therapeutics, there are people that are in that are in certain communities that do not believe in these, especially these mRNA therapeutics. They don't feel comfortable. Well, I think it's a sin to take them because there is a chimpanzee adenovirus, and there's even like snake materials and there's like different materials within these therapeutics that there's a lot of data that's showing that there's DNA editing that is going on with this, right? And so we have to look at the impact to our DNA structure based on like the impact of like further in like inoculating ourselves with these certain therapeutics that could possibly alter our DNA in such a way where we're not, considered to be human anymore, right? And this would be where there's even passages like maybe I'll share Rob Skiba. What did I say before? Skipa? I feel so bad for saying that. But anyway, he just passed away recently, so rest in peace. And he was someone that he's also a flat earther, and I'm a flat simulation earther. So I do believe that this is a like an electrical magnetic energetic world, earth plane, whatever you want to call it, that's being projected on a flat plane of inertia. And there's hyperboloids and toroidal fields that are creating or projecting this hologram or whatever you want to call it. And there certainly is definitely a creator, of sorts. And anyway, I'm going tangents.
When I look at the scriptures, because you have Jesus saying,
he just passed away not too long ago, and he was also someone that was against the like these therapeutics for multiple different reasons. And I
and my Father are one. Right.
Also a flat earther.
Philip says, "You show us the Father and it'll be sufficient." And he's like, "What, Philip? If you've seen me, you've seen my Father." That never computed in my head. As a kid, I used to have those 1-year Bibles. You guys remember those Bibles that were the whole Bible was divided up into daily readings? Used to do those, and after doing a few of cycles of that, roadblock
get to the good stuff
that caused them to deviate and go down the path of atheism has been removed. And in my experience, not only do they come back, they come running back with fire and zeal. That's been my experience. I can't speak for anybody else. But so Genesis 6 for me, I didn't really understand it. I accepted it as giants and that angels did it. Now, seminaries today teach what's called the Sethite theory. How many of you have heard that? That the sons of God in Genesis 6 are the good sons of Seth and the daughters of men are the bad daughters of Cain. Question, does it say that? It absolutely does not say that. And so because of that, they have no real answer for these questions, for these scriptures. They have no way to describe where the giants come from. I don't care how much spinach you feed these people. Kissing cousins are not going to produce Olga Bashan. All right, 15-footers, and he's a short guy. You get to Amos 2:9, and the Amorites are described as tall as cedar trees. A modest cedar tree gets to 36 feet tall. The cedars of Lebanon were 150 feet tall. So I don't know the context in which Amos is writing. That's still huge. On the drive down here, there's a big statue of Sam Houston. Have you guys ever seen that statue on the highway? That's got to be close to that height. It's this big white statue of Sam Houston on the side of the road. I'm like, wow, that's probably what they encountered when they went into the land of Numbers 13. And the good sons of Seth mating with the bad daughters of Cain does not answer that situation. And by the way, if it's supposedly the good sons of Seth, why are they the ones doing the bad thing in the story? It's just something to think about. Many of you know that I served in the military. I was in the Army, first the 110th Air Cav, 86 to 93. And was initially a helicopter mechanic / door gunner, and then became a pilot, scout helicopters. And in the military, I don't care which branch you go into, you have, we call this our SMART book. It's your common soldier's task book. You have no frame of reference for who or what this Azazel character is, or why they're laying their hands on a goat and sending it out to them. They're laying their sins on the goat, but it's symbolically by laying their hands on the goat, and they're sending the goat out to the wilderness. Well, in the book of Enoch, it tells you that Azazel, all sin was ascribed to Azazel, and that's why they're sending the goat out to Azazel. That's precedence in the book of Enoch. Numerous descriptions of giants throughout the Old Testament. Again, you have no frame of reference for that. If you have the Sethite view, there's no way you're going to explain that. Numbers 13 and Amos 2 being most notable, along with other scriptures, obviously talking about Goliath and Og Bashan and their relatives and stuff like that. Both Peter and Jude refer to the quote-unquote angels that sinned, who were bound in chains and cast into the prison of Tartarus. In the canonized text, do you have any story that you can think of that talks about angels that sinned, that were bound in chains and put in Tartarus? I can't find it anywhere. It's the Greeks borrowed from the Hebrews, actually, on that. The Greeks and Josephus, he likens the first generation Nephilim to the Titans of Greek mythology. He makes, and so do.
This is a divinely mathematically coded, multidimensional reality, like a video game. And
some of the other church fathers, quote unquote, church fathers.
It's based on numbers. And so I don't know how much he gets into it. I'm sure he would have got into a lot more of this stuff. Again, he's brilliant. He was talking about this stuff years before, you know, like many other people. And even within like the flat earth community, for example, there's no one that like that says like, oh, I started it first, or I started it first. Like no one cares about this stuff. We're all people that individually came to various conclusions based on our own research. And then just because it's such a small community, where the people that are more vocal or outward about like their own findings, and people doing again their own research, they're coming up with their own discoveries, their own content that just like reinforces like the facts and the evidence and allows us to compile more. Because even for myself, there's considerations and things that I was looking into for many years that led me to discover like people like Rob Skiba, for example, and Eric Dubé and so many others. And Bain and Dave Weiss and then the older pre-Socratic astronomers and mathematicians and things like that as well. And so even with like the angels, they could be like allegories for angles that are used within this multidimensional geometrical universe that's divinely created using mathematics. Angles and angels and what was the other name?
But this clearly shows that both Peter and Jude had read those texts, understood those texts, and under the Holy Spirit's inspiration, endorsed it with their statements that they made. And Jude goes so far as to, in our vernacular, basically cut and paste a paragraph, put it in his book. Among other statements found in the canonized text, which find no precedence anywhere else but Enoch and other texts which affirm it. I put together timelines. Again, I've mentioned that before. I like to put things in visual format. And best I can figure out, looking at the information available, this is the timeline I came up with as far as when the Genesis 6 experiment took place, roughly 3550 BC in the days of Jared. First generation Nephilim would only live for 500 years. Within that time, they were to kill each other off in what became known by the Greeks as the Clash of the Titans. Ever hear the movie Clash of the Titans? That fictionalized story goes back to the real event of the first generation Nephilim that Josephus and others likened to be the Titans were to wipe each other out in a massive civil war. Then around 3114, you have the Aztec calendar stone, the Mayan calendar. Remember all that, 2012 and all that? That shows up around 3114. Shortly after, about 20 years or so, is the death of Adam. Then you have about 20 years later, 25, the end of the first generation Nephilim. And then their parents, the Watchers, are judged, bound, and buried for 70 generations. Remember that, 70 generations. We'll come back to it. Then we have a time of peace after Enoch is raptured. Enoch was not, right? For God took him. And we'll talk some more about that in a little bit. And then we had a time of peace for almost 100 years, and Noah's born, and his daddy named his son Rest. Well, that just makes sense because it was after the chaos of the Clash of the Titans. He named his child Rest. There's no further written documentation anywhere of other incursions of angels coming back and doing that again. The judgment was extremely severe and took care of that problem. Now, this is one of those videos I'm going to play that may be a little bit sensitive for some children, but it's from a TV series called Ancient Aliens. Have you guys ever heard of that show? I think it ran for like 6 seasons or something like that. Quite a number of seasons. They had an episode, I think it was in season 6, that was called Alien Breeders. And I was actually asked to speak at a secular UFO conference in New Jersey a few years ago. And I mean, I knew most of the people, the other speakers that were at that event were some of the people that are in the show, Ancient Aliens. Not the guy with the big hair, though. You know, that guy, Giorgio. But a few of the others. So I'm like, okay, I know who I'm going to be sharing the stage with, and I know the mindset of the audience. But they asked me to come there. The event coordinator, who was also a believer, had been following my stuff. He says, I think they're ready to hear.
1000 BC, and you compare that to the DNA of someone alive today, it has changed by 7%.
Mapping the human genome, Dr. Hawks found that in the past 5,000 years, our DNA has evolved at a rate 100 times greater than any previous 5,000-year period in our history.
So what happened in the last 5,000 years that altered the structure of human DNA by 7%?
Throughout world cultures and mythologies, this idea of otherworldly beings, gods, supernatural beings, demons, having sex with humans is very, very common. The way that we interpret that experience depends on the cultural and religious factors around us.
We can read about these accounts of all sorts of weird beings who had their way with humans.
perhaps further evidence can be found, not by scientists, but by religious scholars. Millions of people around the world believe in the Hebrew Bible. What if it were true?
Did you catch it? You catch the part that I changed? Normally it says millions of people around the world believe in ancient aliens. What if it were true? And I just changed it to millions of people around the world believe in the Hebrew Bible. What if it were true? And I pulled it. I said, look, you guys quote from our book all the time. Would you mind if I did so too? Cool, let's go. You know, got right into it. But this is the paradigm that's being pushed right now. Evolution has run its course. And this is the other reason why I'm pretty passionate. We can probably kill that other microphone. I think we got double. Something's really loud here. The standard cosmological worldview makes it possible for this ancient aliens thesis to be true. Evolution has run its course. They know it. The more they've drilled down into the human genome, the more they've begun to understand the intricacies of DNA and things like that, the more they are forced to acknowledge there has to be a creator. Then have you ever seen the documentary Expelled? You ever see that? Where Professor Richard Dawkins, who's like the mouthpiece for evolution, is being interviewed, and he acknowledges, yeah, there's an extreme design to it.
I would love to.
He says it could have come about in the
I would
following.
love to discuss, have debates or discuss these topics or these points with people like Richard Dawkins and other atheists, or even socialists or communists. I would love to have conversations with them. Just I have questions. And I have points. For you to consider.
Way. Perhaps some advanced civilizations somewhere out there in the universe, you know, of course, they would have also had to evolve through some sort of Darwinian evolution. They were at such an advanced state that they came to this planet and they seeded this place with the information necessary for evolution to then take place. All they've done is push the problem further out into space. But the standard cosmological worldview that is put into place has made that possible for them to do so. And that's the other reason I'm passionate about this, is because I don't know what's coming, but I keep my ear to the ground and I'm listening to what these guys are saying. I don't care what you believe regarding this stuff. They believe this stuff, and they're pushing this stuff. They have these conventions, this disclosure. Have you ever heard of disclosure? That's where they have these big conferences where PhD level people get together and world leaders get together to discuss the inevitable arrival of space people. Did you know they actually appointed an ambassador to the United Nations for aliens? So that if aliens ever show up, we've got a representative of Earth to say hi. I'm not kidding. We laugh, but it's true.
There's no aliens. There's allegedly a lot of research and proof that's being shared that there's nothing that has gone beyond this firmament that God created, or Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, or Allah, or Allah. Like there's so many different words you can use for the creator or creators, and it's very specific that in this reality there's no getting in or out, which is why these rockets keep on going up and then back down. And shared so many videos about that as well. And anyway, he's talking a lot about giants and Nephilim and stuff like that. And I would highly encourage people to take a look at Gog and Magog as well. These are giant alleged Mongolians that lived, a while ago, and the reason why the Great Wall of China was built, and this wall is significant. And take a look at videos and images, or go yourself. I highly recommend it. And I haven't been myself, but I want to. That is definitely on my bucket list. But because of what I talk about regarding China, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go there. Like, I don't want to be another freaking Michael. Ugh, that's terrifying. Anyway, where is I going with that? Oh yeah, and these are buildings and infrastructure that was clearly built by larger beings than us. And there are a lot of different museums and areas where there's artifacts, there's proof of larger beings all over the world, and proof, yeah, again of being bigger, also smaller beings as well, more advanced.
And around the same time, the Vatican said, yeah, when they show up, we'll baptize them.
And if we're going to talk about extraterrestrial beings, I've talked about this in previous videos, but like we have this multi-dimensional Earth plane where there's a flat that's being projected on a flat plane of inertia. It's being run by electricity, dielectricity, and magnetism. And then within this, God, I have to explain so much with the freaking flat Earth. It's just, dome and stuff like that. But within this, there's possibly like more land and areas that are beyond what we're being shown on like various different maps. And so if that's the case, then when you have like inner land or inner, terrestrial areas or locations, and then you have extraterrestrial land masses or areas that are beyond the inner areas, or if you section them off with rings or whatever you want to call it, or barriers, and so that would be possibly where there's like a miscommunication regarding that. And there are beings of various different sorts, like it's like there's the human species. It's really hard to explain, but it's dependent on our environment and how we individually develop and evolve as well, right? So if I was born and raised in a cave, right, like I would be likely pale, right, and throughout time I would lose pigmentation, melanin, and then like even eye colors, right, just to be more effective within like the confines of like those darker environments, even though it's not naturally in my genetic coding. It is something that would be evolving, that would make it where like I would have more benefits, like with my eyesight and stuff like that, and possibly other instincts heightened, and then the ability like throughout time to have like certain things within my diet, that help sustain me, that I wouldn't find in my natural environment, which is above ground and exposed to the luminaries. Yeah, I can go on all tangents about that too. But like even like if you like people that are born at like higher elevations, like lung, like organ development, is it like changes. So this has nothing to do with Darwin's theory of evolution that has been debunked, and there's no transitional bone structures or models or like of species that have ever been shown or proven. The only thing that we can prove is that we can alter. No, we can't. Well, I mean, we can do that with genetic editing and stuff like that, and that shit stuff. But like if I go outside, for example, I can get a tan, and if I avoid sunlight, like I can be pale. There's things. If I work out, I can get stronger. If I go like if I increase my cardiovascular endurance, like I can like optimize my oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, all that stuff like that. Like there's but it's nothing going to be that's going to ever drastically change my like the imprint or the blueprint of that clearly makes me human, if that makes any sense. And so I'm not going to evolve into another species completely just because I'm put into a different environment. If that makes any sense.
If they need it. Because the other thing that's being pushed is they may be on a higher spiritual level than we are. So maybe we've got something to learn from them. That is only possible in the standard cosmological worldview. And the worldview that I showed you yesterday, I believe the Bible absolutely supports, that is not even remotely plausible. Can't happen. But you'll notice David Wilcock was quoting something by Dr. John Hawks, who did a study on DNA, and they determined that something happened to the human genome around 3000 BC. And they're seeing it in the genetic codes. Something happened. Well, I mean, when I saw that, I was freaking out because I'd already established that long before I even saw that episode, just using the canonized and the biblically endorsed text. That was the exact timeline that I came up with, that something happened to the human genome at that time period. But it was dealt with in 3000.
So even with Rob Skiba, there's things that like I don't take the baby out with the bathwater, because like he's a brilliant, he's a genius. He was, rest in peace. There are things that he discusses that like even about dinosaurs and stuff that I'm not on board with, for example. And I'm also someone that that believes that like the representation of Jesus is the sun, Mary is the moon, and and Lucifer is Venus, and that we should be using the original planets in our astrology and our astronomy, and so many other things.
BC, the Watchers who did that were judged, bound, and buried for 70 generations, and nobody else is going to do that again. So he starts experimenting on mice and rats and stuff, cutting their legs off and trying to inject lizard DNA until eventually he gets a code right, and the leg grows back. Wow, cool. So he decides.
This is what I was talking about earlier.
To try it on himself. He injects his stump, and sure enough,
the scientist,
his limb regenerates, his hand grows back. But he had an unfortunate side effect. He became a giant lizard creature that had only evil continually in his heart and mind. And the whole rest of the movie was about him causing a whole lot of violence for Spider-Man. Now, I'm saying to myself as I'm looking at that, I'm like, Hollywood gets it. They understand it. The church is still, it's a satellite theory. No, they're completely clueless. And yet they're getting exactly right. God, how many of you, if you studied the Torah, how many of you know that God is against mixture? Even to, what is it? Wool and linen, right? Yeah. Well, you got plant and animal, and he talks a lot about that, especially through the book of Leviticus. He's against the mixture. He created everything to reproduce after its own kind, and he set the kinds up to be very specific. And Paul talks again later. There's a certain flesh for birds and for this and for that. Everything is supposed to be after its own kind. But in the immediate pre-flood world, 120 years, men began to cross those barriers and start to do genetic manipulation, creating hybrids. And the evidence is all over the ancient record. How many of you have seen the carved sculptures and pictures and stuff from ancient, the Greeks with the centaur, the minotaur, satyrs, the Egyptians, people, human bodies, animal heads. It's all over the ancient world. You have animal-human hybrids. And I was in, I forgot who it was that was asking if we'd been to Athens. Who asked that question? Zach. Yeah, I've been to Athens. I've been to Greece twice. And on my second trip, I was really struck by, it seemed like everywhere you looked, and I've been on Mars Hill and been all over the area, walked down there. Paul wasn't kidding when he said they had a God basically for everything, including, let's just make sure we got all the bases covered. Let's have an unknown God represented here too. It seemed like everywhere I looked, I saw the toppled remains of a temple or the remains of a statue of a god or some kind of depiction of an animal hybrid everywhere. And I came home from that trip and I told Sheila, I said, honey, I can't escape this. It's like everywhere I look in the ancient world, you got animal-human hybrids. I said, I think they were real. I don't think it was just, mythology. And I was talking with a friend of mine who grew up in Greece, and I kept using the word myth and mythology. And he stopped me at one point. He said, Rob, you keep saying myth. Wrote a book, Bible History, Old Testament, chapter 8. He says, of the magnificence of Babel, the capital of the empire of Nimrod, the mighty hunter, it is difficult to convey an adequate conception without entering into details foreign to our purpose. But some idea of it may be formed from its extent, which according to the lowest computation covered no less than 100 square miles. We're talking the base of the tower. While the highest computation would make it over 200 square miles. Well, now all of a sudden I'm going, well, no wonder they built it in the plains of Shinar. They needed a big enough space to build a base for a building that big. That's one huge structure. Joshua even goes so far to tell you that it took a year to get the.
So again, like he's discussing the Bible. I'm going to stop sharing this just because I want to show you. I want to remember. First of all, I was just about to do it again where I was not going to share my freaking screen. Okay. I've shown you my Gematria app or whatever you want to call it page. It's not mine personally. I just use it. I'm subscribed to it. I highly encourage people to do it. And then I do searches, right? Because like even when I look at people like Rob Skiba and so many others, I also do my own cross analysis and verification. So I do Bible searches. With certain terms. So I typed in search earlier. So that's one example. And so there's people that do believe that that heart is acronym for earth. And so the Bible being an allegory, that this is a representation of that. So you can go into other examples of where the word fixed is in the Bible. This is the King James Version that was written by Shakespeare / Sir Francis Bacon in 1611. And again, 6 + 1 = 7, 7-11. Even with yesterday being September 11th, sept is numéro 7 in French is number 7, and then some old historical calendars do classify September as the 7th month, which is why it's called September to begin with. And so they would call it 7-11, and then look who owns 7-Elevens. I'm just throwing that out there. And possibly the same people that fix and plan dates to execute events. Isaiah 40:22, talking about it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. Okay, so that's not circle. Sorry, that's not sphere. That's not globe. Circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Just more letter stuff. Let me see if there's any more stuff that I've. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? So this is the constellations, the zodiacs, and talking about the seasons. I've talked about this with Leonardo da Vinci in the Last Supper and the representation of Jesus and the disciples being representations of the zodiac signs, and like so many different cultures and groups throughout the world have astrology, and there's like there's 12 beings or figures or entities that are represented. This would be why, and or 13, because some people go off of solar calendars and some people go off of lunar calendars. And throughout the world, there are also people in countries that believe that the world is either older or younger than what we believe in various other like in various places like North America, right? So like some people believe that the world is almost 6,000 years old, and others that believe that it's like that it's the year 3000, you know, AD, that it's, you know, you name it. So anyway, interesting stuff. I'll stop sharing that because I want to get through a lot of stuff, and I'm like well beyond an hour. Let me see how long I'm in here. An hour and 20 minutes and 28 seconds. 29 seconds. Okay, so like with Rob Skiba, I would highly recommend people take a look at his work as well. And where I think he was alluding to with these angels or demons or these lost souls that are inhabiting the world right now, that they're claiming to be, you know, entities or beings like from the past that just don't have any hosts to inhabit because they can't inhabit human forms. And so if there are humans that slowly change their genetic editing, you know, like God's creation, God's divine coding enough, then these beings or these entities can possibly inhabit these vessels, right? So like, these are all other things that people do consider or believe throughout the world, and things that we also need to take into consideration. And, yeah. Oh yeah, I can get into more proof about the flat Earth plane and how NASA talks about it on my Discord. And so I will just I will share some of the stuff that I shared directly from friggin' NASA archives. You just have to not be lazy and actually take a look at what I friggin' show. Oh my goodness, people! Sorry, I get so fired up. Because like I get attacked, right? Like I share things that are controversial, and instead of people actually taking the time to even look at it, I get literally harassed. Oh my God, targeted, like want me dead. It's ridiculous. And I've lost people, and I've also risked my life being of service to this country, and still am, because and it's necessary for people like me that have this information to get it out there, right? And it's just annoying when people are just like not helpful at all. Let's see here. Is it gonna show? So yeah, this is like I searched this myself, something that you would not be able to get your friggin' self. You're welcome. Unpublished preliminary data, atmospheric oscillations. You can check out the everything to verify. And obviously this wouldn't be published. Duh. And so like what I do, just because I'm a little lazy, I control F, and you could go to non-row, and then like let's say you can go to where it is highlighted. Where's it highlighted? Okay, right here. Non-rotating and a rotating Earth for the research experiments. Plane level the most. Oh, sorry, I should just go to the title. Flat, make it easier for everyone. Okay. A model frequently used is that of a flat, non-rotating Earth. Okay, this is from friggin' NASA Gov applications. That's only one that I'm showing you, again, because again, like bold claims, like it calls for bold information. So let me just give you a friggin' another one. I have to go on Brave, copy and paste. How come this one isn't going through? This is the one I want. How come this one wasn't shown? This is very interesting. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I will stop sharing the other one and show you the one where it's literally also in the title, so not just buried in the document. Okay, so what does that say? This is Army Research Laboratory, right? So this is this is an Army publication, archived clearly. So propagation of electromagnetic fields over flat Earth. All right. So take a look at this stuff yourself. This is stuff that I pulled myself, and to share it. And again, I'm not even done. And this is stuff I've shown to multiple levels of government and others And again, it's like this is all science stuff. So I'm getting this from official government websites. It's all open source. You just have to know what to look for, right? A mathematical model of the CH-53 helicopter. Control F. If I want to be lazy, let's see what comes up. A flat, non-rotating friggin' Earth. The helicopter equations of motion are given in body axis with respect to a flat, non-rotating Earth. I don't know why I said it like that, but I'm giving so not only am I giving scientific data, I'm giving government data, I'm giving medical data to people that are not taking this stuff and actually just looking at it, just like look at it, easy enough, right? You think, but no. Going on all these tangents, just got to close this stuff up. So take a look at these publications yourself. This is information that you would not get anywhere else. And the reason why this is important that I share this information about 9/11 and about going into a friggin' war after that, where again I buried people that I loved, and overseas, even during ramp ceremonies, right, where I was carrying medals and berets into Chinooks so yeah, like we need to not be duped, right? So even with Nord Stream 2, there are people that are still thinking that Seymour Hersh, who had a Substack on this, that he got it wrong and he didn't. And I've been saying this. I was saying this before Seymour Hersh came out with all the friggin' proof and data, and people were also not believing me. And it's because I'm in Canada, and we're just fed like information that's only going to further push the military pharmaceutical industrial complex, right? And so I want to share Seymour Hersh, his Substack. There is a subscription fee. Oh, look at that. My freaking frozen face looks ridiculous. Whew. Okay, and so people are trying to say that this wasn't something that was done by NATO or that was affiliated with NATO. And they're trying to say that he was blaming it on the CIA. He's not saying that the specific individuals within the CIA got into their friggin' scuba suits and like went to the Nord Stream pipelines themselves and did this stuff. No, but he's saying that there are certain key figures within various organizations that need to be investigated and looked into, because they are the ones that were helping coordinate this and approve this stuff happening and stuff like that. And then what happened? If you look at my LinkedIn, I can friggin' prove this stuff myself. I was responding to General Petraeus and others, generals and other officials that are lying and painting such a false intel package / brief, and I was showing proof that they were wrong in what they were sharing, and instead I was getting my friggin' comments deleted, reported, blocked, and instead of actually people taking a look at this information. And he was pushing for Article 5 and Article 6, right, to push us into a friggin' war. And even when those Polish farmers were murdered, they were trying to blame it on Russia. And yet again, this is something that was proven by me and people like me right from the beginning, saying that this was Ukrainian air defense, and this strike was caused by Ukrainians. And this is where they were trying to say that it was an accident and all this stuff, right? Just like Americans did with the Afghanistan pullout, and then with the drone strike, killing innocent civilians yet again, and then trying to say that this was them killing Taliban or Al-Qaeda. Like, it was so disgusting how they tried to paint this in the media again. And then people like me, unfortunately, even though I have people that were on the ground that I was trying to give them information to, because I've been deployed there and familiar with the areas and giving them like accurate information, I wasn't able to go because I wasn't vaccinated. And the same thing with what was going on with Ukraine, that like I was assisting people with medical evac information and intel gathering, stuff, and not able to go because of my vaccination status. So I won't give names because I don't want to blade anyone. They were following what they thought were legitimate mandates and orders, and they weren't in positions, where they could have impacted a change anyways, right? So like I wasn't going to argue with people and further, or cause a rift in my relationships with colleagues that I've already unfortunately created by virtue of saying this stuff out loud, because they're trying to call me and like the Helen Gruths and others like us that are trying to call this stuff out. They're trying to, demonize us, and it's ridiculous. And it's Canada's freaking. I want to show another example of just how crazy people are here. Sorry. If I can find this, because I post a lot on so many different various social media platforms. I would take a look at Jacques Chrétien's brother, Michel. He had a relationship with Jean Guo Qiu for the last name, the scientist behind the breach of our national microbiology laboratory in Winnipeg. And so, like, I've reposted information about that and his connections with them. Dr. Chrétien thought it was possible that a substance in nature could inhibit the onset of the Ebola virus, and because quercetin has multiple biological characteristics, it may also be able to resist the virus. So they contacted Q, and then I'll not pronounce it. It's XIANGGUO, and then QIU. A Chinese scientist at the National Microbiology Laboratory of the Canadian to carry, that's what it says, to carry out relevant tests. The results of the tests were beyond their expectations. Anyways, so this is just to give you some information that came out even a few years ago. So March 4th, 2020 is when that this report came out, and this was translated, by the way, from Mandarin. That's not what I wanted to show you, though. Let me go on my profile. Jan Arden, like a wannabe friggin' whatever influencer. She was complaining about WestJet and Calgary flights because Pierre Poilievre spoke on a flight. How ridiculous! Like, she's literally talking, I'm going to boycott WestJet. You need to let Pierre Poilievre speak. And first of all, who are you? Anyway, it's just so frustrating that like people can't. This is the amount of censorship in Canada. How crazy people are. They literally want to like people to like basically die or like just have like their lives destroyed and or their businesses destroyed because they don't agree with their policies and politics and platforms and stuff like that. And I just don't understand it, because even with Justin Trudeau, I've literally been part of his security team, you know, to assist, because I don't like I do believe that like everyone has a right to live and be free. Oh yeah, so this was it. So left-wing Ottawa school trustee Neely Kaplan Mirth, she's facing code of conduct complaint charges, whatever you want to call it. I shared that post. This was a woman that was an alleged expert that Canada, like Ottawa specifically, had all over the friggin' news during the COVID pandemic, and so this was a text, an alleged text to persuade trustee Donna Dixon, who is Black. I'm just reading this text. This is from Ellie Canton Nantel. Okay, so to persuade trustee Donna Dixon, who is Black, to vote for the mask mandate last year, Neely Kaplan Mirth allegedly told her that those opposed to it included white supremacists, and hence she should abstain. She followed up by saying, "Don't talk to me about equity then." So she's saying now children who do mask are bullied and pressured by others. That's so sad. This is important, so it needs to be temporarily required. You should abstain. Don't vote with white supremacists. This is like Neely, this crazy unhinged person, talking about this, and then this woman Donna says, "Leave me alone," and then she says, "Don't talk to me about equity then." And so we've given clear science and medical data coming from so many different reputed friggin' organizations that show that the masks are not effective against COVID. And I shared even in 2021, political scientist Kieran Moore, even saying that the masks do not make any difference regarding the spread of this virus. And we have sick people that are trying to force children to be penalized and have the possibility of having chemicals and microplastics formed deep within their organs, not having proper organ development, which is why we're coming up with why there's more lung issues and organ issues surrounding the chest, because of when you have a mask on, you're not properly breathing in order to exercise those organs, those muscles, whatever you want to call it. And then there's also the microaggressions within humans. So they're subtle, but children are they need to be able to assess threats, non-threats, and or truth and or deceit and things like that. And or if people are friendly versus non-friendly and things like that, with again, the mouth is also very important in this. And just not having that. And just because she's ugly, and looks better wearing a mask doesn't mean that she should make it where everyone else has to be forced to do the same thing that she does because of her, because she doesn't want to wash her face properly or throw on even a little bit of moisturizer if her face is friggin' dry. I don't know, you know what I mean? Or just leave people alone. You know what I mean? It's just frustrating that people and think because they have like some kind of a title that they have the right to harass and vilify and put people in groups that they're not part of, right? So like I was also called a white supremacist by ignorant idiots like this, and it's just it just blows my mind that oh my god, that she's giving we're giving people like that money. Where was I going with this stuff? Oh yeah, so with NATO. So so we've got BRICS, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and other countries that are predicted to align and take down, like in whatever way you want to call it, the U.S. dollar at the very least, and no one is paying attention to this, especially not in Canada. And look what's going on with our defense people like Anita Anand, who has no idea what she's talking about or doing, and is very grossly underqualified for her position. And so is my goodness, what's her freaking name again? Melanie Joly. Like these people are not good for these jobs, which is why we're not getting invited to do international security training exercises and stuff like that. And because they also don't agree with the policies and mandates and the stuff that our current leader is pushing, right? And so he's still in India, maybe, I don't know, but his flight was delayed because of technical issues, and he was supposed to be there for the summit. And again, there was like he was poorly received, but and people are saying that makes us an embarrassment and stuff like that. But I'm also like devil's advocate here, that I don't give a shit about Modi at this point. And again, I'm slamming these leaders and what he thinks that he brings to the table, because he just lied to his own citizens and then the world about this friggin' moon landing, which didn't happen. And at this point, only a moron that actually looks at their friggin' screens and the actual CGI editing that they're trying to play off as a moon landing, like you have to be a moron to believe it, right? And so actually, maybe I will just back up my mouth. I've already shared shown information about this, but it's really hard to search. So I'm going to be searching for Eric Dubé and moon landing, because he has a good one out. So yeah, I don't care what India Modi leader. This current one is what I'm not talking about. I'm not saying India as a whole. I think it's a beautiful country. My cousin is married to someone from India, and so, and it has a beautiful culture. It has beautiful food, beautiful advanced, infrastructure, and it has a beautiful culture. Like there's so much beauty into it. I'm just saying this Modi guy's a freaking liar, and he's lying to everyone. So here.
Last week, the Indian Space Agency allegedly landed an unmanned spacecraft and rolled out a rover onto the south pole of the moon. As usual, however, nearly 99% of the footage shown of this groundbreaking event was clear, obvious, and very poor CGI. Why do you suppose NASA, Roscosmos, the Chinese, Indian, and all other world space agencies spend money creating and airtime broadcasting all these computer graphic animations of their expeditions, rather than showing us actual video footage? How difficult would it be to have a few cameras on these crafts permanently recording different angles of the entire flight for us? They allegedly succeeded in having a live telephone conversation between Nixon and astronauts on the moon, broadcast on television over 50 years ago. But with half a century of technological advancement, we still cannot receive live video from these rockets after only a couple minutes of ascent. They always change from live video for the first couple minutes to nothing but CGI for the rest of the journey. Look at these ridiculous cartoon animations and ask yourself, why can't the public just watch the actual live video of the entire journey? Even if only to be recorded and released at a later date, why aren't the public shown unedited video footage from multiple angles of the entire flight duration? Never once has any space mission in history been so transparent as to show full unedited footage of their whole expedition. Instead, what we always get is what India's space agency has just given us: a bunch of grown men and women fervently yelling and applauding over pre-made cartoons broadcast as live video. The still shots we are given from the Chandrayaan-3 are of two varieties. First, we have the overly produced, clearly photoshopped, full-color propaganda pieces, like these, which are shown repeatedly alongside claims of India's successful moon landing, without making it explicitly clear that these images were all created by artists long before the mission even started. The second type of still shot we are given are poor quality black and white shots of dirt and a dark background, claimed to be taken on the moon, but are impossible to differentiate from a sandlot or movie set on Earth. Likewise, the short clips of video footage they tease the public with as being authentic are simply 15-second videos of some lander legs approaching a gray background and the rover rolling down a ramp onto some dirt somewhere. Look at the terrible frame rate and artificial appearance of the supposed moon. What bit of this footage proves that India has actually landed on the moon? What about these clips and images is supposed to silence skeptics and convince critical thinkers that this wasn't filmed here on Earth? The entire mission cost Indian taxpayers $75 million, which is equivalent to how much it costs to make the Hollywood space movie Independence Day, without ever leaving the Earth. It doesn't take much more than this simple charade to delude the gullible general public. But for those of us who have deeply researched this issue and poked endless holes through the lies of NASA and other space agencies, we know exactly what is going on here. For those of you who still believe in these Hollywood and Bollywood farces, please do yourself and the world a favor and watch my banned YouTube video, 20 Proofs NASA Faked the Moon Landings, linked below in the description box.
You can't see it, can you? Let me see here. That's very interesting. I don't know if you could see it. Let me try again. Okay. This was just the video that he was talking about, linking.
Phone call from President Nixon. In reality, when examined in depth with a critical eye, however, these staged events are found to be nothing but a monumental hoax perpetrated on a gullible and unsuspecting public.
Hmm.
1. To begin with, the moon itself is simply a luminary, a non-physical light in the sky, and not a spherical terra firma planetoid as maintained by NASA and modern astronomy. On clear days, you can see for yourself, during a waxing or waning cycle, the blue sky through the moon. On clear nights, during a waxing or waning cycle, it is possible to see stars directly through the surface of the moon. And during each new moon, the moon completely disappears from view and remains invisible for that one day per month. Even members of the Royal Astronomical Society have time and again recorded their confusion at being able to see stars directly through.
Reception is bad. Come on. Well.
Between 1969
Okay, well, I will stop sharing this and see if I can get it on YouTube because it might be better. Or maybe I'll connect to the United States.
In reality, when examined in depth with a critical eye, however, these staged events are found to be nothing but a monumental hoax perpetrated on a gullible and unsuspecting public. 1. To begin with, the moon itself is simply a luminary, a non-physical light in the sky, and not a spherical terra firma planetoid as maintained by NASA and modern astronomy. On clear days, you can see for yourself, during a waxing or waning cycle, the blue sky through the moon. On clear nights, during a waxing or waning cycle, it is possible to see stars directly through the surface of the moon. And during each new moon, the moon completely disappears from view and remains invisible for that one day per month. Even members of the Royal Astronomical Society have time and again recorded their confusion at being able to see stars directly through the moon. For example, Sir James South of the Royal Observatory in Kensington wrote that, quote, "On my first looking into the telescope, a star of about the 7th magnitude was some minutes of a degree distant from the moon's dark limb. I saw that its occultation by the moon was inevitable, but the star, instead of disappearing the moment the moon's edge came in contact with it, apparently glided on the moon's dark face, as if it had been seen through a transparent moon, or as if a star were between me and the moon. I have seen a similar apparent projection several times. The cause of this phenomenon is involved in impenetrable mystery." A star occulting a crescent moon has long been a popular symbol of Islam, was the symbol of the Ottoman Empire, is found on the flags of Algeria, Azerbaijan, Libya, Malaysia, Mauritania, Pakistan, Singapore, Tunisia, Turkey, and in the coat of arms of countries from Croatia to Germany, Ireland, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Sweden, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. Nowadays, however, thanks to decades of NASA propaganda, people believe against the evidence of their own senses that the moon is a physical terra firma planetoid capable of walking on. 2. Basic physics proves that not only has man never flown to the moon, but that the entire concept of a vacuum of space is impossible. NASA and modern astronomy claim that the Earth's atmosphere spins perfectly along with the Earth up to an indeterminate height where it allegedly meets the vacuum of space. Anyone who has punctured an aerosol canister knows, however, that a positive pressure system adjacent to a negative pressure system must have a solid barrier separating them, or else they will equilibrate. Furthermore, at ground level, this spinning atmosphere supposedly travels around 1,000 miles per hour and increases in speed with altitude, so that by 250 miles high, where they claim the International Space Station orbits, the atmosphere and everything in it are allegedly traveling a ridiculous 17,500 miles per hour, the speed of a bullet. This means the astronauts in their rockets were traveling faster than a speeding bullet when finally they popped out of the Earth's spinning, pressurized atmosphere and into the non-spinning, non-pressurized, non-atmosphere of the vacuum of space. Even if they could somehow survive such a transition, once in the supposed vacuum of space, it would be impossible to continue steering, because all propulsion systems require the air in the atmosphere to push against.
So I just shared this to my Discord page, and I'll share this on social media so you can get the full view. Just because I'm almost at the 2-hour mark, I'm gonna stop sharing. Just because I got kicked off. So I just want to make sure that I go through any other freaking points that I wanted to get through before stopping. I really hope that people take a look more into Maui and just the series of events surrounding that. You know, the fires, the devastation that was caused, possible dues, devastation throughout in population dense areas, aid not delivered, outside help refused, denied, cover-ups, funding denied, except FEMA got significant amount of money, and staying in resorts and hotels and stuff like that. It is what it is, but like, but there are people that are homeless right now and in shelters, and $700 is not going to cut it. Criminal negligence from responding agencies, and like the leads, the Biden curtain that they talk about, like where they were like trying to cover up the like the areas around the disaster zones. Censorship was the #1 priority, and there was so much more, right? And so like my point of this too is just like why like there should be like more airdrops and stuff like that of supplies in the area, and more assistance given. And there are children that are still missing, and people need to take a look at this stuff, you know, just take a look at that stuff. there's so much I can discuss, even about friggin' mosquitoes and friggin' SATCOMs, and U.S. DoD responds to to SATCOM outages and the Trans-Pacific, August 30th, and in around those times, and times that when there was possible like nuclear testing being done by Japan and North Korea and some others. Anyway. Oh, what else? What else? I think for now, I will leave it at that. Oh yeah, sorry, I was talking about bricks and stuff like that. I went on these freaking tangents, and why that's important, and why it's significant that we have people that are in government right now that are just completely ignorant, and there's more. Oh my God, censorship. Like even Rebel News, Ezra Levant, like he just shared something as well that I reposted about another liberal politician who tried to censor them illegally and information that they were sharing, and that like they just won in the courts, and they wanted to silence that, but we're not able to, and so but yeah, we are still heavily censored in Canada, and we have people within government that are in key positions that are feeding us lies. And I don't know why. So like either they don't know what's going on with the reality of the world with all the stuff that's going on, or they do know and they just don't care who they harm. And so if you're working with the government or within on behalf of Canadians and representing us on an international scale, you should be better, do better, and not have people that are not even invited to these events or these exercises or these committees or these panels, because people don't take us seriously. Like, and of course they don't. Look at these people's resumes and how they're talking online and stuff like that. And I'm very controversial online, and yes, I do fire people up and I do poke fun at people, you know what I mean, and say things that, you know, like probably could have been better left unsaid. But you know, it's in my temperament, and I do believe that people are getting away from being really, really harsh towards me and others and vilifying us and character assassinating us and demonizing us. And they have a huge platform in order to do this, and they're being funded to do this, right? To like, and so it's just more of I'm just defending myself in a lot of cases, and or trying to, you know, put people to task, right? And ask hard questions to people. And doing it in such a way that will grab their attention where they wouldn't necessarily, you know, care before, right? Like if you like hurt someone's ego a little bit, sometimes it's a way to get their attention. If they're harming people, if there's a reason for it, right? So like with Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and these people that are not listening to people, even during the Freedom Convoy, with people that were clearly showing they wanted it to be peaceful and share scientific, medical, and government information that we were trying to share for years. Again, you can look at my Twitter. Dawn Dussault, DAWN DUSSAULT, or you can even spell it, you know, a way that gets me away from the censorship stuff, which is DAWNNE, and then like I spell my last name the same. And yeah, so I think I will. Oh yeah, so I say controversial things, and it's like I'm trying to get really important information out to the best of my abilities, and have it to be as truthful as possible, where we are failing by looking at the mainstream media, but we don't have access again to content that goes against this stuff. It's really frustrating. And so yeah, it would just be nice if at some point I can just be hired again, but in a capacity where like I can sit down with these people and give them this information, so that moving forward we can look better and act better and function better, you know, as a whole. I think I will leave it at that on that note. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.